The timing couldn't have been better for the launch of the Conscious Leadership Academy. The day before, South Africa heard that it had officially entered a technical recession. On the day of the launch, former Steinhoff boss Marcus Jooste testified in Parliament. The day after, the inquiry into state capture entered its 10th day. Building on her non-profit organisation Conscious Companies, CEO Brenda Carley had been working for some time on encouraging a more ethical approach to doing business.
Being in the corporate space for over 35 years, I just watched people behave in such an atrocious manner. And just my observations from the corporate space made me realize that there's a need to change human behavior. Because I don't know what happens to people when they go into a corporate or a public service environment. They lose who they are, they lose their core. We are supposed to, as human beings, be noble and kind and loving. But have you ever worked in a corporate environment and seen what they do to each other? They make it okay to trample and stand on the shoulders of others to get ahead. Mm-hmm. And they use their positional power, especially if you're a manager, to not to influence and enrich, but rather they bully and they loot and they acquire. And I just thought, for conscious leaders shape conscious companies, and to do that, leaders must behave in a conscious manner, and then it comes cascading down. So I started Conscious Companies. It was a scribble on a page in the middle of the night when I wanted to retire. So unfortunately I can't at the moment because this has gained so much traction over the years. It's 3 years now and it's gained so much traction. And so more and more people are starting to realize that there's a different way of doing things, and there has to be a different way, otherwise the consequences will be dire. Just look at the environment we come from. The newspapers scream every day of headlines, scandals, corruption, corporate shenanigans. It's not necessary. There is enough. Nature provides enough abundance for everyone, yet children still go hungry to bed. It shouldn't be like that. And that comes out of conscious leadership. So we have to, as human beings, change behavior.
So the conscious leader of a corporation is one who plans for the long-term health of a company, not short-term wealth. If you get the long-term health of a company right, then you're creating value in a sustainable manner. And that's in the best long-term interest of all the stakeholders, including the shareholders. Otherwise the company will fail, especially in a century of radical transparency with social media. So as soon as a company operates as an irresponsible corporate citizen, social media takes over, and as you know, reputation has become a critical part of what is now 80% of intangible assets of companies versus what is additives in a balance sheet according to financial reporting standards. So we're in a century of intangible assets with radical transparency, reduced natural assets, increased demand for product, and that is the global reality. So with climate change and all these things, these are drivers of changing the corporate mind. And the corporate mind can no longer plan just on the financials.
What has happened in South Africa, particularly for young millennials, Gen Z, they are having a look and they're saying the old order didn't work. You've destroyed the economy, you've destroyed the planet. We heard the statistic on more plastic than fish in the ocean. And I think they'll punish those companies who deliver only profit. I think they're more interested in, do you put the water that you use back into the earth than how much of it is in the product. And so I think the conscious leadership is absolutely for the moment to deliver to the new generations, particularly, as I said earlier, in a social media world, entities that make profit, but in making profit are sustainable and are going to give to young people, in addition to the profit, that they've looked after the people and that they've looked after the planet.
The brainchild of Brenda Carley, the Conscious Leadership Academy was created to build conscious leadership capacity in a country that desperately needs a shift in consciousness, ethics and governance. Professor Mervyn King
That we
brokered
can
the
only meet
partnership
the
with
needs of the
Regenesis Business School.
But we have
I believe most of the problems we have today in the world in terms of poverty, unemployment, wars, terrorism, diseases, are about leadership, A root cause is leadership. So it's about lack of conscious leadership, So we can make the world a better place only by developing better leaders, more conscious leaders, Leaders that work for purpose, for greater good, Leaders who are not just thinking about money and greed and leaders who are not arrogant. So in order to make the world a better place, we need better leaders. They create ripple effects, and leaders that have developed emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, which is about purpose, about ethics, about truth, about authenticity. Leaders who can care for their team members, leaders who are grateful and humble. So those are types of leaders we need to develop, to make the world a better place. Not only world, but also our companies, to improve performance in our companies and to achieve success, we need more conscious leaders, So this institute is going to really address that problem, on the highest level of leadership, by engaging in various activities. One of them is we're going to have a conscious leadership MBA, conscious leadership MBA, and then we're going to have also forums, workshops, seminars, and we will create a platform where leaders can come and discuss conscious leadership. They can share their experiences and they can support each other to make really greater impact.
Also partnering with the Academy is Unilever South Africa. More than a century ago, the company's founders had a vision of the world that was broader than their business and used their brands to address big social issues of the day.
So it seems to me that you jumped at the opportunity to partner with the Conscious Leadership Academy.
Yes, I think it was important, and we need more leaders who have that consciousness about and can really be the advocate of it does exist a model where it's an economical model where we can still grow the company while having a social impact. And I think that's very critical. And I can mention, that the fact is our brands with purpose, the brands which has really a sense of purpose and doing better for the community, no matter if it's acting on water like the sunlight, washing powders, which is help to use 50% less water, Lifebuoy, as I mentioned, Domestos, and many others. Basically, these brands are growing much faster than the other brands. So it does exist an economical model. And we need more leaders, we need more conscious leaders to transform that world, as well as we need us as Unilever more partners, because it's a part of the SDG 17 where we need this partnership to create a stronger, bigger impact and develop a brighter future for all South Africans.
It's absolutely critical, both in the public and private sector, that we have conscious leaders. And by conscious leaders, I mean those who appreciate that they have to develop a business model or the way they do business or the way a department in government operates, that it has a positive impact on these three critical dimensions for sustainable development. Because the reality is we do have climate change. We do have global financial crises. We do have a situation where we are in a resource-constrained world. We do have a world where we've got to control our emissions. So these are realities. And so much so that the United Nations some 7 years ago developed the principles of responsible investment. So even in capital markets today, if you and I are directors of a company, let's say a state-owned company in South Africa, let's say Eskom. Eskom used to issue bonds which went into the capital markets of the world with a particular coupon, and there was bidding for those bonds. And so they raised capital to carry on the business of producing energy for South Africa. But I'm prepared to wager if Eskom issued a bond today, there'd be no bids for it. So things have got to change. And I think the reason for that is there were not conscious leaders who were appointing those directors. It wasn't the directors themselves, but then the management. So the evidence says, I've got personal knowledge, so the evidence said they were acting on a basis of self-enrichment, self-gratification, and did away with self-concern. So I always tell students there's a river called the Self River, SELF. And as directors, you have to cross that Self River where you leave behind self-concern. So you take risks for reward, although it might damage you. You might one day be sued. None of us get our business judgment calls right 10 out of 10. But we have to take risk for reward. That's why your trustees of your pension fund invest in the equity of companies. And when we cross that Self River, we go into the area of intellectual honesty. What does that mean? It means the honest application of mind in the best interest of this incapacitated, inanimate person that has no heart, mind, or soul of own. It's got no conscience. You as the corporate leader become the conscience of the company. And that's what the academy is going to teach. Teach that you approach the decision making to make sure it's not only intelligence, but emotional, in the sense that you're making sure you're meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And then S is for sustainable and spiritual. Spiritual means doing the right thing and doing it in a sustainable manner. So it's IQ, EQ, and SQ. And that's what we're going to teach at the academy, and have an MBA academy, which is Conscious Leadership MBA. And I think it's critical, particularly in our country, to make sure it's both in the public and private sector.
You know, it's amazing. You talk to a CEO today and you talk about conscious leadership, and they ask, what is it? What is consciousness? They don't get that conscience is very different from conscious. Very different. Because consciousness is just a deep awareness of your thoughts, actions, feelings, behavior, and how you react. That's what consciousness is all about. And if you're really aware and you're conscious of your actions every day, can you imagine the impact you would make on everyone you touch?
In order to bring that across, what kind of faculty are you bringing in?
There's very in-depth knowledge of mindfulness, of yoga practice, of conscious leadership. So the faculty EQ, SQ, which is spiritual intelligence, emotional intelligence, how to align profit with value creation, how to align productivity with work ethic, getting the big picture as you as the human being put in a special space in a corporate environment, in a position of power where you can not only gain benefit, because there's always self-interest, but also to be able to reach out and uplift and help others.
And how long do you think it will take for this to start having a broader impact on South African society?
I think it started having an impact already. When I call for nominations for the Conscious Companies Awards each year, I've seen an exponential growth. So last year we had 82 nominations, small, big, huge companies. Luco from Unilever was one of our finalists. And so they already get the consciousness. And those who do not make it to the final 6, they come back to me and say, why didn't I make it? And that's why the need arose for the Conscious Leadership Academy.